recordproduction.com interview, and today we're interviewing somebody I've been meaning to talk to for an awfully long time. We're at Bank Cottage Studios, and I'm delighted to introduce to you George Shilling. Hello, George. Hello. Very nice to see you, George. Nice to see you too. So let's get stuck in. The first question I've got is the usual recordproduction.com opener, which is, how did you get into the music business? What made you interested in music, and how did you get your first studio job? Well, I came from a musical family. My father was a professional opera singer. He was a principal baritone at the English National Opera at the London Coliseum, and my mother sang as well. And so there was music in the house, and I took up the cello when I was 7. I never learned how to sing, but I had supportive parents, and I had piano lessons as well from when I was 9. I had a drum kit when I was 9 as well, and I was terrible at that, so I sold it when I was 15 and bought an electric guitar. So when I left school, I went to the Royal College of Music on a performance course learning the cello, but I soon kind of got a bit fed up with it, and so I wrote to lots of studios, like the traditional method, and had a few interviews, and eventually landed a job, well, fairly quickly landed a job at Livingston. I turned up there for the interview at 10 o'clock in the morning to see Jerry Boys and the Sisters of Mercy, a goth band. We were all sitting there on the sofa, all in black leather and shades, black hats, black beards, looking very black and very cool. And they'd been there all night, I discovered. So I thought, well, this has got to be the coolest job in the world, working in a recording studio all night. So I was very keen to accept the job there at £1.25 an hour. But Jerry was a fantastic engineer himself. He'd been at Abbey Road. Jerry's a fantastic engineer. He's known for doing the Buena Vista Social Club, Cuban records these days. Fantastic engineer. And there were 2 other great guys as well. There was Tony Harris, who was meticulous about everything and, you know, really on the case. And there was Simon Bohannon, who now runs Sphere Studios, and he was great at sort of problem solving and finding solutions for odd requests from producers and bands. And there was also Felix Kendall, who engineered alongside the producer Warren Livesey, and I worked with them on Julian Cope. So lots of good engineers, but then there are also the freelancers coming in. So I worked on a session with Billy Bragg for a long time, with John Porter producing and Kenny Jones engineering. So I learned some of his skills. And they also did a week doing the Smiths doing Panic, Hang the DJ. So I made tea for that session. I remember tape upping on a session with the Clash as well when they were doing their last album. That was fairly entertaining. But yeah, lots of different engineers would come in, and some great and, you know, some not so great, and you'd sort of pick up things or learn how not to do it sometimes as well. So that's how I learned engineering. So why did you build this studio then? Well, I built the studio for a variety of reasons, really. When I left Livingston, having had a bit of success, I was freelancing and producing and working in big expensive studios in London and all around the world. You know, I went to Japan a few times, and New York and France and Belgium and Denmark and China, and but you know, a lot of these budgets are kind of disappearing. So I found myself working in a spare bedroom. I got a little setup in the spare bedroom, and I started finding myself mixing albums in there, which was a bit silly because it was 10 by 12 and not really a great room to work in. And then we decided to adopt some children, so the spare bedroom was no longer the spare bedroom, and it's now painted Barbie pink and has bunk beds. So I needed somewhere to carry on working, and it just seemed like the most sensible solution. And so these 2 rooms were purpose built, and I've got, you know, a nice big control room, and the drum room, which is a bit more bangy and reflective, and get a great drum sound out there. And yeah, it's worked great, and it means I can sort of fall out of bed and work on people's mixes when I need to, and have bands in, and it's been terrific. So how did you learn engineering? Who taught you the studio skills initially? Well, most of my good tricks are, I suppose, there are things that they're things that I've learnt doing the recordproduction.com interviews. So a couple of my favourites are Clint Murphy's trick of putting ambient mics a couple of inches pointing at the floor for drum miking, which works great in my room out here because it is quite a reflective room and it's not that huge, so you don't want too much splashy cymbal going on your ambient mics, so putting them close to the floor, that works great. You should watch that Clint Murphy video that's on recordproduction.com where he explains it better than I have. And another one that I remember was when we interviewed Laurie Latham, and he suggested using MS miking, mid-side technique, for Leslie speaker, and I've got a fantastic 60s valve Leslie, so that's become something that I just regularly do. You know, you have your two mics in mid-side arrangement, and it really gives you a good sense of the rotation of the speaker when you hear it in stereo, or like that if it's in tremolo mode. So that's a good trick. And we just interviewed George Apsian down at Core, and he suggested that once you've got a drum take, getting the drummer to overdub just the snare part on its own afterwards, and adding that in with the mix, because then adding the ambient miking in, because then you haven't got all the hi-hats and stuff on your ambience, which is a great trick. Well, it sounds like it's a great trick. I haven't actually tried it yet, but I plan to try that one very soon. So there's a few secret tricks which aren't even not particularly secret now, are they? I suppose. Why do people use you, do you think? Well, I like to think I'm good at lots of things, really, but I suppose, yeah, being a producer does mean you have to have lots of different skills, and I like to think I'm pretty good at most of the things you need to be a record producer. I've got a good sense of pitch and tuning and timing, and the skill is flying by the seat of your pants and knowing what to bring to a particular project. Excuse me. And it's, whether you spending a whole day. I did a mix recently where we spent not consecutively, but I spent more than 3 days on a single mix, working patiently with a chap who'd written a song who wanted to experiment with lots of different ideas. Conversely, I've had an afternoon where a band has come in and we've just banged down 5 songs pretty much live in a day. And it's knowing how to deal with all these different situations appropriately, and that comes with experience. I've been at it a while. I may look young and gorgeous, but I'm cracking on a bit. So it's the benefit of the years of my experience, hopefully. All those reasons and more. And finally, what's your favourite interview on recordproduction.com? My favourite interview on recordproduction.com? Well, all the ones Nigel Jobson does. Great. Who do I invoice then?